I'm gonna tell you what to eat in order to have beautiful skin. Just kidding, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not allowed to tell you what to eat. Also, I'll just tell you now, this video is not meant to treat, diagnose, or offer any medical advice. So I'm not a doctor, but I am a teacher. So that means that I also can't tell you what to eat or even what to do. All I can tell you is what has worked for me. So that's what I'm gonna tell you. Today, I have a pimple. It's right here. And it's from eating stupidly. So sometimes I eat stupidly. Yeah, guess what? I don't always eat perfect. But what your skin looks like is a product of your lifestyle choices over time, not using skincare products. You don't need skincare products to have beautiful skin. In fact, often they inhibit that goal. One of the main ideas I encountered around eating to have beautiful skin is optimizing digestion. If you're eating like 5 meals a day plus snacks, or 3 meals a day, or you're just like grazing on crappy food, your body's gonna be doing a lot of work just digesting your food. So then it can't do anything else. It can't devote its energy to any other tasks. The reason why healthy people tend to look good is because their body's not spending so much time and energy on digestion. So what does optimizing digestion mean? Here are a couple of ideas that I encountered. Some sources say that food combining is nonsense and it doesn't work. And it might not work for some people, but it really worked for me. I went through a period of very strictly not combining a protein with a starch. So if I'm gonna eat a potato, then I'm not eating meat or soaked almonds or whatever. I'm not combining a protein with a starch in the same meal. Often I would consume my proteins at breakfast and lunch, and then my dinner would be starches because starches are sedating. So that's one thing. There's a lot of information about food combining out there, so you can try it and see if it works for you. It worked very well for me. I spent a period of time where I strictly followed the tenets of food combining. And not combining a protein with a starch is one of the main things, but there are a lot of other parts to that I won't get into. It's just something you can research for yourself and try if you want. Again, I can only tell you what I've done. Also, everybody is different. It might not work for you. Another idea that's tied into optimizing digestion is eating light to heavy throughout each meal and throughout the day. So if I have a salad, you might not even eat vegetables. Maybe you just eat only meat. I don't know. So this might not apply at all. So eating fruits first, then waiting 30 minutes, then eating my vegetables, then proteins, then starches. If I'm doing that, like if I'm being a bad girl and combining a protein with a starch, then it would be vegetables, and then I eat my proteins, and then I eat my starch. But you can add in the comments, let me know in the comments if you're like, eating light to heavy is bullshit and you shouldn't do it. Because I don't know, you can't tell me I shouldn't do it because it worked really well for me. Eating light to heavy is something I still practice when I can. Sometimes I will just plunk a grilled cheese sandwich into my body. Is getting your digestion going with something that doesn't take a lot of energy to digest first. So you kind of get like the stomach acids warmed up before you eat something really heavy. So get your digestive system going with a salad and then eat the meat and potatoes or whatever, or just the meat if you're not combining a protein with a starch. Another thing I do is I tend to try to not eat fruit with a meal. If I'm gonna eat fruit with a meal, I will eat it first. I also try not to eat fruit late in the day, but sometimes I do. But ideally, I'm eating all my fruit in the morning, or if I'm eating it later in the day, I'll eat it before I eat anything else, because fruit digests fast, and if you put it behind something like a grilled cheese sandwich, then that thing digests slow and the fruit is behind it, and then it takes too long to digest and it starts to ferment inside your body, and that has effects that are not good. Apparently, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm a street nutritionist. I'm an amateur body enthusiast. So if you want real information you can trust, you need to interrogate your idea of what trust means first, or go see a nutritionist. Another thing I do is I don't drink liquids with my meals. If I have some kind of liquid, it's maybe like some hot tea that I'm sipping, or I'll like sip some hot tea afterwards, minimally. But for the most part, I don't consume beverages with my meals because that dilutes the digestive enzymes. And you want the digestive enzymes powerful as possible so that your digestion goes easily. If you drink a bunch of water or whatever with your meal, that's gonna bog down your digestion. So normally, to stay hydrated, eating your meal is not when you're gonna consume your hydration, unless you're eating fruits and vegetables, which is a great way to be hydrated. If you eat fruits and vegetables, you might not. I get my hydration mostly at night, right before I go to bed, and in the morning right when I wake up. And then I'm usually not thirsty throughout the day, unless I'm drinking a lot of coffee, which I should stop doing because it's very drying. We all have our guilty pleasures. Maybe your guilty pleasure is face creams. So apparently, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. This is something I learned in my forays of learning about my own body and learning how to trust my own body and listen to it. Apparently the inside of the body, like your inside body biology, likes to be slightly alkaline, as opposed to the outside of your skin, which likes to be slightly acidic. So if you're drinking coffee, that has a net effect on your inside biology that is acidic. So when you have conditions that are more acidic than alkaline, that could be one contributor to things like inflammation that causes various issues throughout your body. And when inflammation is chronic, it could cause even more issues. So one way of taming inflammation is to leave your body in an alkaline state if you can. One thing I did for a long time when I completely shifted my diet was first thing in the morning, drink hot lemon water. I haven't done it for years, but when I do it, I tend to feel pretty amazing. Also, nutrition information is always changing. They're always saying like, this is good for you, this isn't, this is the new superfood. So really you have to listen to your own body and experiment. No one can actually tell you what you're supposed to eat. But one thing you can do as a starting point to learning about yourself is to get a consultation with a nutritionist or with an Ayurvedic practitioner or with someone who practices traditional Chinese medicine. If you find a practitioner that you can trust, with whom you have really good chemistry, then you can get some real information on how to get started, how to navigate this world. And I highly recommend getting multiple opinions. Often you'll find that different systems will say something similar about your body, and then that's some information that you can really start to trust. I'm also an astrologer, and some people I don't. I'm interested in it for myself, but I don't practice it for clients, is medical astrology. There were ancient Greeks that said that you're not a doctor unless you understand astrology. And I don't think the ancient Greeks were idiots. We have a perspective about like, oh, we're just getting better and better at understanding the world, but I don't think that's necessarily the case. Look at the Dark Ages. Oh, we can never have a dark age again. Anyway, if you get multiple opinions from practitioners of the body, such as traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, and or a Western holistic nutritionist, or whatever system you're interested in, hearing the opinion of an expert about your own body, then if you look at that through the lens of astrology, you'll find a lot of those things are mirrored if you're doing it right. If you're with a practitioner who knows their stuff and with whom you have good chemistry, who's interpreting the chart correctly, you'll find that mirrored, which is pretty interesting. But use my use of the word astrology to debunk everything I'm saying. Another thing I do is I try to always eat organic. And sometimes that means buying something from a farmer you trust who doesn't have organic certification, because since that is an institutional certification, sometimes there is so much red tape put up that the small-time permaculturists, for instance, can't get that certification. So then they can't say that their products are organic, even though they technically follow all the guidelines and they don't spray any chemical garbage on their crops. It's very difficult to navigate what to eat, and it's very difficult to navigate making choices about what to eat if you don't want to consume the weird chemicals. For instance, there are chemicals that the institution, the powers that be, say are safe, and then later they will be deemed uproariously unsafe. For instance, Roundup, the chemical that's sprayed on things that if you are certified organic you can't spray on your things, was originally positioned as an environmentally friendly replacement for DEET, which is a horrible chemical that people were spraying on crops that they found out was bad. So these cycles keep going. There are things we're using now that we're like, oh, it's fine, and then we find out later that it's not good for you, like blue light at night, but that's a different video. The way that I came to change my diet was I was looking on Pinterest for the word detox in 2013, and I came across Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop Detox, back when Goop wasn't even a lifestyle brand, it was just a funky newsletter. And I was working in advertising at the time, making good money for like the short period of my life where I actually made good money. So I had the funds to follow this detox protocol to a T, and it used things like agave, which I would never use now, but at the time I just followed it exactly. A lot of it I still agree with. So I had the resources to buy all these fancy new groceries and follow this protocol, and I felt amazing afterwards, and that brought more information into my life. I actually ended up going strictly vegan for a year and a half, and I'm not advocating that for anyone because I'm not sure that that's a great idea for every human body. It worked really well for mine as a medicinal period of about a year and a half. Later I started getting into rewilding and being exposed to more information about how meat ancestrally and animal products are very good for our bodies, although we can't embark on a sacred hunt of a wild and free animal, thus minimizing that conventional or even organic small-time animal husbandry causes. If you're a rancher, that's a form of betrayal. You're raising an animal in order to slaughter it. I'm very sensitive to that. But I still go to the store and buy meat, so I don't know. This world isn't set up for all of that. The world is set up for you to eat bugs and pea protein. Anyway, I read Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer. I read a book called The Beauty Detox Solution by Kimberly Snyder. There are things in both of those books now that I don't necessarily agree with, but at the time, I found the information very useful in overhauling my diet. So again, I became vegan for a year and a half, but I wasn't eating any processed food at all. Right now, from what I recall, some of my, a lot of my protein came from nuts, but they were organic, extremely expensive, things like walnuts and almonds, and I would soak them in spring water first to rinse off all the weird things that your body can't digest. I'm not suggesting that you go vegan for a year and a half. I don't even trust that you'll do it right. I also read a book called The Body Ecology Diet, which was mostly a gut healing protocol, and it was very strict. And I followed that as closely as I could, but it was insanely strict. A lot of it was even beyond the bounds of what my own lifestyle could handle at the time. But at some point I'd like to try it again. So another thing that I would consider a part of optimizing digestion is the gut healing component. And you could do that in multiple ways. The way I did it was I started incorporating fermented vegetables that I fermented myself. So I read The Art of Fermentation by Sandor Katz. I read his pamphlet first, Wild Fermentation, and there was some stuff about fermentation in some of the other books that I was reading at the time. So fermentation is scary at first, but then when you get used to it, it's pretty amazing that you could create these large amounts of things that are sold at the store for very large amounts of money. You can make them yourself for $2. As a part of the gut healing component of optimizing digestion, healing your gut from the typical disastrous Western diet also can do a lot to tame inflammation. Anyway, I would incorporate fermented foods in basically every meal, and most of it was stuff that I made myself. And I actually haven't taken a probiotic in quite a while. Again, in order to overhaul my diet, I went through a period where I was very strict and did all the things, and now I do whatever part of the things that I can manage to do, but I basically I changed the baseline of how I want to eat in the first place, so I feel like I don't have to be as strict now. But again, I went through a period where I was very strict. So during the period where I was very strict, I took a probiotic in the morning and at night. And again, there are so many probiotics. I don't know which one you should take. You need to do your own research on that, or maybe later I'll do another video. But the main thing I can tell you is that if it's one that you need to keep in the fridge, that's the starting point for ones that are legitimate. But I don't know, I think seed is supposed to be a good type of probiotic. I've never taken it. I don't think you're supposed to keep that in the fridge. So again, there's plenty of information about probiotics out there, and maybe they're not good for you. Maybe the research is wrong. I mean, we're not doing things to foster our microbiome, so you got to put things in there. And on that note, the way I took the probiotics was very important. I would take them first thing in the morning so that they went straight into the parts of my body, past my stomach, into my intestine. Anyway, I don't know if that makes any sense. Again, I'm not a doctor. These are just insane ramblings. The other way I took probiotics was at night. In the name of optimizing digestion, I would try not to eat my evening meal less than 3 hours before I was going to go to bed. Can't always do that perfectly, but I do my best. So then right before bed, I would take the probiotics. I would also take a magnesium supplement, which I don't fully understand anymore, because again, that was 10 years ago at this point. So what to eat for your body is going to be very, very different from what I need to eat for my body. Or maybe not. Maybe we have similar bodies. But there are so many factors that go into what is good for you specifically to eat. One of them is your ancestry. Where did your people come from? What did they eat? What did your body evolve over generations and generations to eat before the great diaspora happened and everybody lives everywhere? That will be a big deal. Then there's where you live and how the environment and your lifestyle affects your body. There's also what part of your life are you in right now? You might need to eat differently now than you did 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 1 year ago or 2 years from now. That's why exploring this on your own instead of just reading clickbaity articles about what to eat or accepting that this one diet is the one way that every human being should eat. So what part of your life are you in? What part of your cycle are you in? If you are a woman, then you have a cycle. You are a different woman. You are 4 different women, at least, if you want to simplify it. And I really like the book Woman Code by Elisa Vitti for basic information that we were never taught about our cycles. There are different foods that are good for you at different times in your body. And then those different foods will be slightly different depending on the woman. That's why it's so important that it's good to get professional opinions, and then it's good to try things. Like I said, I went through what I am now calling a medicinal period of time, where I followed a very strict protocol, and then I began to incorporate different foods back into my diet and have more of a normal way of eating instead of such a restrictive way of eating. But one thing that did was serve to sensitize me, not in a bad way where I get irritated, but in a way where I can listen to my body and I kind of know what makes me feel crappy and what makes me feel energized and what makes me feel relaxed and what makes me feel manic just by the things that I eat. You need to do that for yourself. Everybody is different. There does have to be an element of sovereignty around what types of foods are good for you, and then what ways of eating are going to be good for the outward appearance of your skin. Also, what season is it? It depends on the season what foods are available. I mean, not necessarily. If you're eating at a grocery store, you can have an apple that was shipped from Argentina that's covered in weird wax. So there are a lot of factors, and you don't necessarily have to consciously acknowledge every single one of these factors at all times. Another thing I did was I visited a Chinese medicine practitioner and I visited an Ayurvedic practitioner, and they both gave me extremely valuable information that I still use to this day about just where to start, like understanding my own body's baseline. To wrap this up, I will acknowledge the world is not set up for you to eat well. If you're at least a millionaire, maybe you won't have any problems eating well. The way this world is set up for most people, it's tremendously difficult to nourish your body properly with food. I even have a hard time with it. This week, I ate a lot of food that would be considered not great. That is why I have this pimple. No, it's over here. Can you see it? I hope not. So I, of all people, can understand a situation of not having any money to see an Ayurvedic practitioner or to like buy all the ingredients in the Goop Detox and follow it exactly. Not everybody has the resources to do that. I don't right now. Even when I saw an Ayurvedic practitioner, it was a part of a trade. So I developed a skill that they wanted and they traded me. But I didn't ask them to do that. They asked me. But I hope that this video has given you plenty of starting points, so at least you can research things yourself. Figuring out first how you can get to a place where you can actually feel the difference between eating this or that. That's a great place to start, to locate the appropriate starting point for you in regards to how to change your diet with an eye towards the outward appearance of your skin.